Hi, welcome. I'm very excited about our show today. Our guest today is Nichole Clark. She is the author of Remember All That Is, Conversations with My Daughter After She Died. She has so much to teach us, or maybe Emberly has so much to teach us through your daughter's communications. I love your story, Nichole. It's really fascinating to me. And I can relate to it a lot because from what I understand, you come from a traditional religion, which is Mormonism, correct?
Yep.
And before Emberly passed even, you started kind of transitioning out of traditional religion. Is that right?
Yeah, about a year before she died. Well, my husband had started probably 2 years before, and that led to a lot of discord in our marriage. I was so offended that he would think outside of the box or start reading anti-Mormon literature or anything, and it was creating quite a wedge in our marriage. And then my dad had died. In 2017, my dad passed away, and that's where my heart started to be kind of open a little bit. And from there, I learned about The Secret, and I started studying Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and so many other people who were spiritual but not religious. And I was like, I've literally never even explored anything outside of my belief system, because in Mormonism, we're taught this is the only one that has all the truth. You don't need anything else. And so why look? And so I never did. And my dad's death was kind of the catalyst for me to start to awaken. And then my husband getting further and further away. And I was like, if I want to stay with him, I need to be open to what he's saying and listen to him as well. And yeah, so and then it ended up being like a massive physical problem that was finally what was the catalyst for me saying enough is enough. I have to leave now or I actually will die. Like physically die. It was kind of intense, but
I think it's important. You said how it was scary, but eventually you kind of had to follow that path, because I had the same thing. Mine was Catholic though. And I really do think almost all, certainly Christian religions, think they're the only one. And that's what they teach. I know ours did. One Holy Catholic Apostolic Church. That was it. Everyone else we tolerated, but we had the answers. And when you're born into that and enmeshed in that and surrounded by that your whole life, when your heart starts pulling you somewhere else, it's pretty terrifying, isn't it? You feel like what's happening, like the ground underneath you is shaking. And I think maybe if you can expand on that a little bit more, because I believe a lot of women especially are going through that, because traditional religion is so enmeshed in the patriarchy that in order for us to evolve and move forward in a new way of being more authentic spiritually, we're going to have to kind of release these traditional beliefs. So if you can kind of just talk a little bit about how you dealt with those doubts.
Oh my goodness, so much to unpack there. Like so much. Because yeah, when it's your whole life, like me, Mormonism was my entire life. Everywhere I lived, everywhere I moved, because I moved like 40 times, like immediately I'd go to church, I'd find my family, I'd find my church family, and I didn't really look outside of that until I moved here to a very small town in Ohio, where for the first time I lived in a religious town that wasn't all around Mormonism. It was like I'd find Baptist friends and Catholic friends and friends who were Muslim. Like I had friends that weren't Mormon because our congregation here was very, very small. So I had to look outside of my normal family. And I was like, wow, these people believe just as strongly in their religion as I do in mine. That's kind of mind blowing, because everywhere else I'd lived, like Catholics would go on Easter and Christmas, or it wasn't like an all in kind of passionate thing. And like within the first couple of weeks of living here, we actually had a neighbor come to our house and invite us to go to church with them. And I was like, I've literally never heard of anyone outside of the Mormon church knocking on doors besides Jehovah's Witnesses, right? To invite you to church. And I was like, this is insane. Like I've literally never lived in a place where it's so religious. And I remember looking in the newspaper on every Friday, they have like a religious, like the whole newspaper becomes like a religious thing, and it has a whole directory. I remember counting over 150 Baptist churches alone in our small town of like less than 3,000 people. And I was like, where did I move to? enmeshed in the Mormon world and still very much believing in that, but my eyes were starting to open. We've lived here like 10 years now. And I found that these people were inspiring me to want to dig deeper into my beliefs because they believed even more than I did, or just as much. And I was like, I had never thought that was possible. So when your whole world revolves around this belief system and this family unit, and all of a sudden you start to see that, I like this person a lot and she doesn't believe like me, but I really want her to have the same benefits. And with Mormonism, I think probably with a lot of other religions as well, a lot of my conversations with other people and friendships had ulterior motives behind them to convert other people to the gospel so that they could live eternally with their families and be happy like me for eternity. It was all this ulterior motives behind converting other people so that they could be happy, because I couldn't see that they could be happy without the gospel. That wasn't possible. And now that I've been deconstructing, like you talked about the fear was so all-encompassing in my body that it took me, probably 3 years before I finally left the church, of questioning it. The last whole year, it was like I'd go every Sunday, because I never missed a Sunday, my whole life. Every Sunday I went, even when I was in labor, I tried not to miss church. It was insane. And then it came to the point where I would go and I would sit there and think, I actually don't think I believe any of this. And every Sunday I'd come home and be like, why am I still going? It's actually hurting me and it's hurting our family. And I see that a lot of these beliefs are actually harming my children. And it's not encouraging me or uplifting and making me feel good anymore. But I still went because it was out of duty for a whole year. And then like I told you earlier, my throat, my health just started to deteriorate. And I had learned from a Dr. Joe Dispenza workshop, or I went to a week-long retreat. I learned all about the throat chakra. And this was probably a year or two before I left the church that I'd learned about it, but it never clicked that that was what was going on with my health, until it came to the point where I was literally dying. I couldn't breathe, couldn't get a full breath of air. And my throat was literally closing in on itself. I had about this much of a little straw right here in my epiglottic. It was just closing in with scar tissue, because the throat represents speaking your truth. And it was so scary, so scary for me to first acknowledge that I didn't believe it anymore, and then to share it with other people. I was going to be rejected from my only tribe. I was going to be told that I was going to hell, or that I was not going to be with God for the rest of my life, or that I'd be separated from my family for all eternity. And that's no. So I resisted it as much as I possibly could, to the point where my soul had to almost suffocate me to death to wake up, to say, no, you need to something needs to change, or else you're literally going to die, which is not as extreme as most people's situation. But I was so all in, so 100% Mormon that you could not have convinced me unless something terrible had happened to my health or something. So
I think that's very relatable what you're saying. And I think it's important, because I went to church every single day and confession every week and said rose. I was in it. I was teaching it. Catholicism was everything. And as I said, I really do believe there's a major shift in mass consciousness of our souls. I think especially females. And that's why it's important we talk about this, because we need to hold each other. We need to say, I got you, sister. I know it's scary. It's tough. Keep following your heart. Follow your soul's calling. We're here. We're here. We got you. Lean on us. We'll hold your hand. You're not crazy. It isn't the devil talking to you. It's your soul waking up and expanding out of its training of what we've been trained to believe is true. So thank 100%. You so much for sharing that. That's so important. And I really want to talk about your beautiful, beautiful Emberly. It's the book. I've read it several times. She's brilliant, of course. So, and as we mentioned before, we started the show, that this evolution of your soul was kind of laying the groundwork for what your mission with Emberly was. If that's correct, and
Yeah.
please just take it away and tell us all about your journey with your daughter.
Yeah, so about a year before Emberly died is when I had the throat surgery and I decided enough it is enough. I have to leave. So I left the church, but I still doubted it. I still feared, the consequences and all the things that were taught are going to happen weren't happening, but I still lived in that constant fear. And then in August of 2020, when Emberly died, she passed away in our backyard. She drowned in our pool, and I had had many premonitions before that. I did everything I tried. I tried so hard to prevent it from happening, but sometimes you're given a premonition because it's preparing your soul. It's preparing you to handle the worst. And as much as I could be prepared, I was for the situation, even though I didn't. I tried very hard to prevent it with all my heart because it was my worst nightmare. Literally had dreams about it for years, and then it came true. And very, very, very hard. Not something I want to wish on anyone. And for me, it has also turned into a huge blessing because Emberly has been, she's just been so helpful for so many people. Like from this tragedy, I have created pearls from my pain, is what I call it. And a couple weeks after she passed away, I went to a psychic medium, and they told me, this happened because of a soul contract you and Emberly had made before you came here to expand the collective consciousness. And like you were saying earlier, I truly believe there's a huge shift in consciousness right now. A lot of people are waking up and asking critical questions. They're actually starting to critically think and allow themselves to think outside of the box and to really wonder, is this really what my soul feels good with right now? And a lot of religions are proving to be more harmful than helpful right now. So a lot of women and men are turning to other means of spirituality or atheism. They're just like, forget it. I've been manipulated too much, right? But I knew for me, like, I still wanted to have connection, especially when somebody who you love dies. You want so badly to connect with them, to have some kind of communication. And I had never, ever thought I could channel or and I always thought that was woo-woo. That was like, no, you're communing with the devil. Don't do that. It's scary. And I get that kind of comment all the time now. People are like, you're not talking with your daughter. You're talking with the devil. You're deceived. And I get where they're coming from because I used to believe that. However, when I started talking with Emberly, after I talked to the psychic medium, she said I was going to channel a book with Emberly and it would change millions of lives. And I was like, I don't know that I can do that. Somehow I figured out how. When something's meant for you, you figure it out. And it just happens. It just happens. And I'd already had a meditation practice. Every morning I would meditate, and sometimes I'd write in my journal, but I knew with Emberly, if I was supposed to write a book, I couldn't just do it mentally. I had to write it down. So I'd get on my laptop every morning, I'd meditate, and then I'd ask her questions. I'd just start typing. Like, I had a dream about you last night, or I'm thinking about this today. And her answers were so profound and so mind-blowing and so not my answers that I was like, I know I'm not making this up. Like, this is not me. And I know that some of the things that she's saying are terrifying for me to share with other people, because they're so outside of the Mormon box that I was raised in. And I questioned everything with her, and it just turned into such a beautiful compilation of answers about parenting, about life after death, about religion, politics, my health. I had chronic health issues and so many things across the board. I just asked her everything, and she had an answer for everything. And a lot of them I was like, oh, I was really resistant to. But now that we've published the book, it's been actually a year ago yesterday. It was Emberly's birthday. This is our book, Remember All That Is. Yesterday was
interject, please buy that book. It's amazing. Like I said, I read it, and sometimes I have it on Kindle, otherwise I'd be holding it up. Sometimes I just kind of scroll and stop and just see where it stops and take that as the message I need to hear that day.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I like it. I use it kind of like a tarot card or some kind of a bit like the Bible for me is you can open up to any passage and it doesn't have to be in chronicle order. And oftentimes it's exactly what I needed to hear. In fact, just this morning, I was going through this limiting belief that I have about money. And I was recognizing that I'm still angry at God because of the patriarchy. I was taught that as a woman, I'm not supposed to have a business. I'm supposed to stay home and nurture my children. I'm not supposed to make money from the work I have. That's, the man's job. He's supposed to provide for me. I had all these beliefs that I thought that I healed a long time ago. But this very morning, I was like, I am actually really angry at God. And I didn't realize that. And like in the book, we go through who is God, and that's a whole other story. But there's still this part in my subconscious programming that God is an elderly old white man in the sky who had all these patriarchal beliefs of like men are superior, they provide the money, women do the mediocre slavery work at home. And I literally, not to kid you, like a half hour ago, right before we got on this call, I was like, I would not want to know what message I'm supposed to share today, right? And I open it up and she's talking about how I'm angry with God because of the patriarchy, because women are considered less, like, I'm like, oh my goodness. I literally haven't even read the book for at least 6 months, haven't even opened it because I haven't needed to, but every time I do, it's literally like an oracle, like exactly what I need to hear that morning. And I'm like, wow. And I've talked to readers who have, like, there's a whole topical guide in the back. I don't know if you have that on the Kindle probably, but I don't know. Where it just goes through different subjects and things that I talk about regularly, because that's the thing with the book. It's like, I'll talk about chronic pain probably 15 times in different areas of the book as I progress throughout my relationship with her, and with my questions get deeper, or I'm still struggling with this, can you explain it a different way? And then she does, and each time it's like you can gain a little bit from each conversation in a way that like maybe helps somebody in a different way. So it's been beautiful to hear from readers who are like highlighting it and using the topical guide and using it as like a reference book of like, or an oracle card.
Really is. It's a fountain of wisdom. And one thing I just want to, I don't want to dwell on, but I do want to say, because I've been on this journey for a long time out of religion into just a more authentic version of spirituality for myself. And I'm a reader, so I would read everything, and I would go to weekends and listen to people's talks online or whatever. And I always felt like I don't have whatever they have, because I feel terrible, and they seem to have such great faith and they can just move forward. And I think it's important to say, I really like in the book, see, so when I was 14, I'm the youngest of 6. And I know Emberly was your 6, she was your little baby. And I was 14, my 22-year-old brother was murdered. So I witnessed what it was like for a mother to lose her child, for a father to lose his son. And I know my mother struggled. And I do remember one thing in particular. She had started going back to beauty school because, she was from back in the day. Women didn't do anything, but, I was in school. Her youngest was out. So she was going to become a beautician. And after he died, she couldn't go back. She just couldn't make herself. She'd try and get dressed to go to beauty school, and she would just stop. And one morning she said, she tried, and she laid on the bed and she just said, I can't, Gary. I cannot go on without you. And she said she heard his voice so clearly with such sadness say, Mom, go to school. Like he really wanted her to continue to live. So I don't want to dwell or bring up your pain, but I think it's important that people also understand, which is another real good reason to get the book, because you talk to Emberly about that. You say, I can't. And tell us, what does she say to you, how to treat yourself when you're feeling those days that you can't really handle the grief?
To allow yourself to feel all your feelings. That's one of the number one lessons she felt, to not judge where you are, and to allow yourself to be 100% where you are with what you're feeling without judging it as wrong or bad, or feeling like you have to do something. We get to do things. We get to choose. Right now, I'm going to feel my pain. And when you do, it heals. When you allow yourself to feel all your emotions fully without judging it as like, or resisting it, the pain can actually turn into pleasure, and it can turn into a healing for our soul. And she tells us to treat our pain and the things that we're feeling as a little child. as somebody who would come up to us, like, I always had a soft spot in my heart for orphans. And she clearly knew that when talking to me in the book. She's like, treat your inner child, or that person who wants the attention, as like an orphan child who would come to you on the street and who just needs love and encouragement and somebody to hug them and love them and not judge them. And so when you start doing that to your own pain, when you start doing that to your body or wherever you might be mentally, physically, and allow yourself to go through those motions, or to just be lazy. Like, lazy is another thing that I actually like got this passage right before we came on, because so many times we judge laziness in our culture as a bad thing. Lazy meaning I have to just lay in bed today. Like, I just have to just numb myself with Netflix or whatever it might be. And we judge it as bad. And she says here, being lazy is a great thing to be. You can get quiet. When you can quiet your mind and body, you receive answers you couldn't get when you're being busy. Don't underestimate the power of taking breaks and not doing anything at all. It is one of the most underrated things humans can do. Laziness has somehow got a bad rap, but it is a crucial part of learning who you are and what makes you tick. Enjoy the lazy moments, for they are important to developing greater self-awareness and enlightenment. Like I said, like I said, she literally gave me that exact paragraph to share today, right before we got on. Not knowing what we were going to talk about, but knowing that, like, so many of us live in so much self-judgment of where we are. We think that we should be doing better. We should be healing faster. We should be, and then whenever you're shooting on yourself, you're not allowing yourself to fully be present in the moment and allow yourself to learn the soul lessons that come from the pain, from the tears, from the sadness, from the guilt, from the shame. And when you allow yourself to feel them without judging them, they become your teachers. They become guides to help you reach your greater happiness and peace.
Very true. And our society does not reward stillness and quiet. It's just do it, push through it, boot camp, suck it up. And that is a very masculine, patriarchal way of existing in this world. And sometimes a little bit of that isn't a bad thing. But I do feel that we've been trained to only applaud ourselves for physical accomplishments we can see with our eyes. And really, yes, the most important accomplishments is the evolution of our soul, our own spiritual growth, our willingness to look at our trained beliefs and say, do I believe that because I know it's true, or do I believe it because everybody told me this is what I should believe, so I've just kind of followed along?
Yeah. And so much of what we do is cultural conditioning. It's literally just ingrained in us, especially in the Western culture. Capitalism, money is our number one focus. It's our goal. Like, that's what's going to bring us the most happiness. And yet we see time and time again, often a lot of people who make it big, who have the world available, and living themselves, not wanting to be here anymore, or getting drugs is because they're happy. Because money is not the end all be all. It's a great tool for us to achieve greater happiness. But honestly, like, we're so focused and conditioned as a culture to think we have to hustle and bustle and do and achieve in order to feel successful and good. And when in reality, like you said, the important work we can do is learning to love ourselves, learning to go within and be at peace within.
You're breaking up a little. Is it breaking up on your side?
No.
Yeah, because there. Okay, I think you're okay now. Let's see. Yeah, you look okay now. Yeah, you just broke up, and I don't want. I mean, what you're saying is so important, and really, that I want to. Okay, I think we're good now. I think.
Did you just miss all that then?
No, it was coming through, but the picture wasn't aligned with the words, which is fine, because what you're saying is really important. Even though we do like to see a beautiful face, it was just kind of breaking up a little bit. There's a few things, if you don't mind, that I read in the book, things that Emberly said that you responded to that I thought were really powerful. So you talked about having a soul contract with Emberly, and that we designed our lives, and that it's not God doing it to us. and that we even choose our villains. So can you kind of just expand a little bit more on that, on what you've learned about that, or what your beliefs
Yes.
are now?
Yes, because that was a life soul shift for me. Like when I was able to grasp the concept that nobody had doled out consequences or hardships that each of us had to go through, because I had always believed in this God who was a fatherly figure and who kind of designed each of our lives according to whatever I don't even know what. And it just seems so unfair to me in the book. I was just constantly like, it's not fair that somebody gets cancer, that you have to die young, and there's other mothers who are abusing their children when I wanted you so badly, you know, or handicapped kids, or people who are born gay. Like there's just so many things that we struggle with, and they're all so different and drastically, you know, on a different level, I guess, than each other. That how could he expect us all to just return and kind of somehow be on the same playing field when we're all just drastically different? And when I was able to realize in the book, she taught me, and previously I'd researched a little bit about your soul's plan. Like we make a plan before we come here. I talk about that in the book. And then a soul contract went even deeper, was that we create plans before we come here to help us push us to the next level, to help us like learn soul lessons that we want to like really, really embrace or heal on a soul level. And oftentimes, or always, we're the ones choosing our parents. We're choosing our religious background, our bodies. We're choosing the trials that we want to go through. And we're even choosing our exit points, like when we want to leave this earth. And when you see it that way, when you see that we chose the villains in our lives, the people who are going to hurt us, we chose the abuse. Like people always like, oh, I would never choose that. And I 100% understand. I talked about that in the book. Like I would not have chosen to lose a child this young. Like, heck no, this was my worst nightmare. I do not want to do this. And yet when you can take full responsibility on a soul level and say, there's something here for me, there's some kind of growth that I wanted at a bigger level than my human capacity is able to understand right now, then you can really dive in and say, oh my goodness, this is actually like really healing for me. And like with Emberly, this book is healing for so many people right now. So many people are reaching out to me in DMs or emails or through reviews, saying how much it's touched their lives and how much it's changed them. That like, I feel grateful for this experience as much as it's brought me pain and horrible, and I would rather, not have it.
Mm-hmm.
I am so grateful that it's happened, because I know that it was a plan that we had, and that we will be together again for all eternity. Like I'm not worried about not seeing her again, but I am so grateful for the lives that it's helping, and for the joy that it's bringing to other people, the peace that it's bringing, and to know that somehow I planned it instead of I was like given it as a consequence for my bad behavior or bad thoughts, or people used to say, or have said many times, you manifested her death because you were so afraid of it. I'm like, if that was the case, every child on this planet would be dead, because every mom has fear of their child dying. Like I didn't manifest her death. Like it's really hard sometimes that people just automatically judge and come up with assumptions about who you are, your character, from like a 20-second TikTok or whatever they happen to find about you. But I truly believe now that we plan our hardships, and we plan. And the other cool thing was that she told me villains are the ones that are volunteering on a soul level. Sometimes they could be your best friends. They're the only ones that were willing to hurt you enough in this short little lifetime, because as a soul, this lifetime is just a little blink of the eye. It's a couple minutes, on a soul level, where we're eternal beings, where as humans we think it's going to last forever, it's never going to end, it's permanent, but none of our feelings are permanent. They're always temporary, and they're always like going up and down. And when we can just enjoy the ride and recognize that maybe this villain that's hurting me so badly that I really just hate right now, maybe on a soul level they were the ones that love me enough to be willing to hurt me right now. That like switched something in my brain to say, wow, I can actually love them and not judge them and not criticize them and not feel pain when I think about them anymore. And that healed me in so many ways.
That's a really good point. And I think especially for women, I talk about this with other women a lot, because the tenets of most religions, certainly Christian, is service, turn the other cheek, and all that. It's a little bit of a tightrope for women because we're so trained to be subservient and kind of take whatever's dished out because that's what the God in the sky wants from us. That's holy, and then we'll be rewarded in heaven. So I don't 100% adhere to that, but I do absolutely believe that. I would say one of my greatest teachers in my life was my father, who I love dearly. He was a wonderful man, World War II vet, Chicago firefighter. So he did a lot of service, but he had the addiction of alcoholism. So there was also a lot of violence and things like that. Growing up in my house, my father literally scared the shit out of me. There was not like this close, loving relationship. I loved him. I know he loved me too. He loved all his kids, but he was caught up in this addiction. So there was this trauma and all this other stuff to get over. And he just passed 2 years ago. And it was the most beautiful relationship of how to continue. Of course, I worked on things. And also, this is really important. My father didn't continue the abuse all throughout my entire life. And that's important, I think, especially for women, because I stayed a lot of times in jobs or relationships and let people continue to abuse me because I thought that was the holy thing to do. So accepting that there is a reason and there are villains in our life they're teaching doesn't mean that we stay and let them keep abusing us. We can take the lessons that were learned. And like I said, it was easier with my father because he became the kind of father. By the time he died, it was the kind of father I had wished for as a little girl. And it was a beautiful, beautiful relationship based on honesty and forgiveness. And that was really beautiful. So he was the biggest villain growing up. And then now at this point in my life, after he's passed and after I've gotten older, I can see that what a gift he showed me. And the thing is, my father never owned what he did and said, I'm so sorry I did all that to you. He didn't need to. I worked on my own healing and releasing. And his responses, while not overt, there was a very covert, like, healing running through that. So I didn't mean to sidetrack you, but I always think it's important because, especially, I can relate to you very much because, like you, I just lived, ate, breathed, slept my religion. It was everything. And so women like us tend to take a lot more abuse than we should. Because someone is there to teach us lessons and teach us forgiveness does not mean we keep them in our lives so they can continue abusing us.
100%. Setting boundaries and learning. That's what happens when you start to really love yourself, when you start to fill your own cup and recognize your own worth, which unfortunately a lot of religions teach us, again, the hustle and bustle of checking the boxes to be worthy, being subservient, serving your husband, doing all the things for your kids, being there for your community. You have to check, and then you're worthy. Then you can feel good enough about yourself. But it was never enough. It just seemed like this ongoing list of things that you just never felt like you measured up. And so many women get caught in that trap of like constantly giving and giving and giving and accepting the abuse, accepting the people who are not treating us the way that we deserve to be treated because we believe that's what we're worthy of. And like you said, if we don't heal that pattern, we keep that pattern and we keep attracting more people to prove to us the belief that we have within us that we're not worthy, that we should be abused, or that we're, we just have to be submissive, and somehow that's the good thing.
Somehow holy, that you're holy, the more abuse you can take. That there's a God in the sky that's like, oh, I'll reward you when you get here, which is
somehow you're going to get more rewards in heaven for enduring more abuse here, where I don't think that's the truth anymore. And I think that when we can empower ourselves and step into our own soul and our own healing and really, like you said, do the inner work and get to that point where I deserve way better than this. I can set a boundary and not deal with this. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I deserve way better. And then you can put boundaries in and not accept that abuse anymore and recognize, yes, that was something that I needed to heal. And now that I have, I don't have to accept it in my life ever again. And that's such an empowering place to come from, having been, you know, abused or misused or treated like you're not good enough, to being so self-fulfilled, self-actualized, empowered, that you don't need to serve anyone to feel good enough. You just live you live who you came here to be. And so many women are living in the shadow of themselves rather than really stepping into who they are, because they believe that that's what's the best thing, or more, you know, holy, or whatever, whatever belief we've been conditioned.
That's beautiful what you just said, that women are living in the shadow of themselves instead of being who they really are, because we're trying to perform to type, how we're told what a good woman acts like, how a good woman behaves, what's holy and sacred for us, as dictated by people who want control over us.
Yes. Yes. It's like so many of us, we are supposed to be the author of our own script, the person that's playing the lead role in our own movie, right? Our own movie of our life. And yet so many of us are playing the actress that's in the back, that's memorized all the lines. I can't remember the name for it, but that's ready to step in.
The understudy?
Understudy, yes, the understudy. We're playing the understudy in our own life, you know, like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm too afraid to do it because I've been taught all these other things, so we don't question it, and we don't really step into our real role of being who we came here to be.
Absolutely. Now, there's a few other things I wrote down that from the book that Emberly said, if you could kind of expand on a little bit. So first of all, the title, because there's a good explanation. I love the title. So can you kind of tell that story and how that came to be?
Yes. Oh my goodness. The title was, that was a really, naming a book is one of the hardest things for me. I've written 2 books, and it took, like, you have the whole book written and you're just like, what do I call it? Like, what are people going to look up, or what's going to speak to people's souls? And like I said, throughout the book, Emberly and I talk about God and who God is. And instead of it being a white, cisgender, old male fatherly figure in the sky now, Emberly has taught me that God is all that is. Everything, everyone, everywhere, all the time. And so all that is what I refer to as God. And that we are all God, every single thing and person and place. And about a year after I'd written the book, I was still way too scared to share it. Like, I had shared a little bit here and there on Facebook or whatever, but publishing it, yeah, right. Like, I was not ready, because I bare my heart and soul in the book. I'm very vulnerable, and I share, you know, I share all the things that a grieving mother feels, and it's really raw. And I was terrified, not just because of that, but more so because of the beliefs that it would have people question, or, you know, going outside of the box. And so I was listening. I remember I'm an artist. I became an artist actually after Emberly died. And I was in my studio painting and creating with crystals and stuff one day. And I was listening to Kyle Cease on YouTube, who's one of my favorite speakers. And he was talking about how he went into a dark room and spent 10 days in a dark room, and like had this amazing spiritual experience. And my soul was like, you got to do that. Like, sign up, go now. And I was like, what? Like, what is that? I'd never heard of it before, but it's like called a darkness retreat. And so I looked it up, and the only one that they had available in the entire United States, a lot of people go out of the country for this, was in Ashland, Oregon, which happened to be an hour away from where I was, like, basically raised. I lived in Klamath Falls, Oregon from 3rd grade until I graduated high school, basically, and hadn't been back there since. And I was like, I think that's kind of a sign too, you know? Like, so I was able to go home, see my childhood home, see like a lot of my old friends from high school and stuff. And then I went to this darkness retreat, which was an experience in and of itself, but you're literally in this man-made cave with no light, no sound. It's like really cushioned. So I could hear the rain outside a few days, and maybe I heard some dogs barking like 1 or 2 days. That was it. Like, other than that, it was all my thoughts. Like, that's all I heard nonstop, you know?
So wait, I gotta ask. So like 24 hours 10 days in a row, you just were in a darkened room. I assume there's a bathroom in there or something, so you can go to the
Yeah.
bathroom. But there's no break. It's just all darkness.
Yeah, yeah, all darkness. It's like all the windows are sealed. Like there's no cracks of light anywhere. And the first couple of days there were a few cracks of light. So he would like, and this man who was in charge would bring meals twice a day and put them in a double door. Like his side would open, he'd put it in, he'd close it, he'd ring a bell, and then I could open my side whenever he left or whatever to eat my food. He'd also ring the bell when he stoked the fire or when he was coming, because there was it was cold, and what's it called, a wood stove in between us where it would heat the place. So I had a bathroom. Well, it was all one room. I had a toilet, I had a sink, I had a bathtub that I used once because it was terrifying to take a bath in the complete dark. I was like, and then there was a bed and enough floor space that I could like stretch out if I wanted to and sit down to eat my food or whatever. But other than that, like not much, right? It was just as low key and minimal as you can get basically to survive. And the first 5 days were kind of, well, really hard. Well, the first day was like blissful. It was like so quiet and peaceful. I think I just slept for probably 24 hours. It felt like I was just like gone to the world. And then it was like my thoughts were just on repeat over, and mostly about what time is it? How long has it been? When's my next meal coming? Like our human brains are obsessed with time. And Emberly has taught me over and over that we as souls live in a timeless state. There is no such thing as time. And so our human minds are just like, I don't have any access to know. I don't even have light. Like that little pinnacle of light when I first got there was like, I knew it's day, or it's nighttime. But after a while, you have no sense whatsoever if it's day, night, if it's breakfast or dinner, like you don't know. And it's really hard. It's really difficult. And I went in there with expectations to talk to Emberly, to hopefully see her, to have some kind of spiritual experience with her. That was, and to name the book. Like that was my number one intention was to commune with her in a way that was more fulfilling, I guess, than writing on my laptop, because apparently that wasn't enough for me. I wanted proof that it was real, that I hadn't made this whole book up, because people had kept, telling me I was making it up to make myself feel better and, all those kind of things. So I think it was day 5 where I had been sleeping, trying to sleep, but trying to like not be in my head. And I actually brought a notebook that was spiral that I got pretty good at writing in the dark. Like I was actually really impressed with myself that I could read it when I got done. But I remember writing down exactly what she told me because it was so profound. It was like one of those like, whoa. First of all, let me tell you, when we named her, my sister-in-law actually came up with the name Ember. And we had never heard of it. And we were like, that's beautiful. And that's exactly what we want her to be. We want her to be a source of light for others, that even when it's separated from the fire, it still stays alive. Somehow we always her name was so spot on, right? So when we got to this point where I'm naming the book, I talked to my editor a few times before going to the dark room, and she would say, why not return to all that is, or returning to all that is? Because that's what Emberly did, she returned to the wholeness or whatever. And I was like, yeah, that's a pretty good working title. I think people in the spiritual community know what all that is, at least a lot of them do. And that's a good title. But when I told it to Emberly, she came really strong in that dark room, and she was like, Mom, it's not returning to all that is. That's an okay title, but that's not how it works. You are now, you always have been, and you always will be an integral and necessary part of the wholeness of all that is. So it's not really a returning, it's more of a remembering. So name the book, Remember All That Is, and highlight the ember. And that's what I was like, oh, highlight the ember, because, then she went on, because an ember often looks like it's separate from the fire, from the full flame. And it feels all alone, but with a little intention, with a little air and a little energy going towards that flame, it can become its own fire. And that's how we are as souls. We come here feeling separate from the fullness of the flame, of love, of all that is, the wholeness that we all have naturally within us. And we feel like a little ember We feel alone, scared, incapable, less than, unworthy. But with a little air and intention, a little love on that little ember that each of us has, we can remember exactly who we are. We can remember our wholeness. We can step into our power, and we can feel that love right here, right now, instead of having to wait till we return to all that is.
It's so beautifully put. Before I know you have to go soon, but I want to, if it's okay with you, I just want to, there's this one passage, one thing that I think is really important, and Emberly talks about this, is the way that we're trained, certainly through religion, may possibly society too, but anyway, we're not here to be happy. We're here to earn our way back to heaven. And I know most of us, when we're feeling happy, we're looking, okay, what's going to happen? Something bad's going to happen. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, because happiness feels so foreign. It feels wrong. It feels bad. This can't be right. I don't deserve this happiness. And if it's all right with you, I want to read this part where Emberly talks about happiness and then kind of gets your feedback on it. She says, happiness is another thing that is very misunderstood on earth. It is an innate part of who we are. At our core, we are love, light, and pure joy. Sorry. Whatever we can do on earth with those qualities and help us feel more of who we truly are, that brings happiness. That brings happiness. Sometimes that requires struggle only because the human is too stubborn or stuck in their ways to change if nothing drastic happens. But it doesn't have to be that way. Happiness can be achieved at any time if one simply focuses on what brings them joy and does those things as often as possible. You could eliminate all struggle if you just recognize and trust that all things are for your own good and that you can control the ride with your thoughts and feelings, at least to an extent. But I love that she says that we're here. If you could eliminate struggle, if you recognize and trust everything's for your own good, focus on what brings you joy. We're not taught that. We're not taught that. So if you could just expand on that a little bit, I'd love to know your thoughts on that, and if that has changed the way you live.
Yes. Let me show you. I'm trying to clean off my phone so you can see the screensaver. I don't know how to get it so you don't see the apps, because this right here has been my I don't know if you can see it.
Focus on fun. Oh, I love that. You don't have to
focus on fun. You don't have to get anything done. Focus, like the word have, we are so conditioned in our culture, like we were talking earlier about, we have to do things, but it's all a choice. And when we focus on our fun, when we focus on our joy, when we do the things that light us up and bring us the most fulfillment, we're in a perpetual state of happiness. And happiness can be found even when you're feeling pain, even when you're going through discomfort, even when you're in a hard time. You can find the joy in that when you focus on, how is this happening for me and not to me? What can I learn from this? And it's not a state of toxic positivity, because I've been there before too, like where let's find the good in every single thing.
Right.
And then gaslight ourselves. No, it's learning how to enjoy being sad. It's learning how to accept being bored. It's learning how to embrace feeling less than or not good enough or rejected or whatever it is that we're so stuck on, but we're resisting all those feelings because we're judging them as wrong or bad. Rather than, like she says, when you focus on the things, when you allow them to be in your body, when you allow yourself to experience the full felt experience of each emotion, each of them become our teacher and our friend. So that's how you can live in a perpetual state of peace. Not just happiness, but peace is more, I think, the end goal of just being neutral, not being triggered by things all the time, learning how to just be in the moment and love what is, no matter what it is. And that's a hard lesson for us, because as humans, especially in our Western culture, we are very much do. We're not really focused on being a human being. But when we're here in this now moment, when we're focusing on what brings us the most joy or pleasure, because you can be stuck in traffic. Like last week, I had a flat tire on the way home from dropping my girl off to school, and I was stuck and a mile away from my house in the pouring rain in this muddy little lot for 2.5 hours. And I just found ways to enjoy that. Like, isn't this fun? You know,
Wow.
what can I focus on that I'm grateful for in this moment? How can I improve this situation by seeing how this is happening for me? You know, we never know. Like, sometimes we don't know that right down the road, I could have been in an accident and this flat tire maybe
Oh,
could be little
nope, you're breaking up again. You're
picking up
frozen.
fun.
Can you hear me?
I can do the whole time. I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on.
just your picture is freezing sometimes. So I guess this is as good a place as any to end. It has been so delightful talking to you. And I just want to add one quick thing, because now you're back normal, is to do whatever it is. What I've learned to do is do one thing that makes me feel comforted or loved, whatever it is, but most importantly, without judgment. If it'll give me some relief to sit and eat a bag of potato chips and watch some crappy thing on TV, if I can do that and that kind of brings me down to let things go a little bit, if I can do whatever it is without judgment, because one thing's become clear to me: nobody's judging me but me. I mean, there are people out here judging because they've been trained to, but there's no God in the sky judging me. That's all coming from me because I've been trained to believe that, and that's what I'm trying to untrain myself.
Yeah, it literally is a process of unlearning, unbecoming, undoing all the enmeshment that you talked about earlier, and just being okay with who we are, what we bring to the table, because who you are is good enough right now. You are worthy and you are lovable. And there are people who are learning from you just by you being present, just by you existing. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
Nichole, thank you so much for all this wisdom, sharing Emberly's wisdom as well. Can you please tell people, remind them the name of the book? Remember all that is Conversations with My Daughter After She Died. That's the book. Get this book. There is so much in there. It's mind expanding, it's comforting, it's beautiful, it's human. Thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that with us. And also website, how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, they can find the book and other things on my website. It's called www.embersglowstudio.com, which is where I sell my art. And I also have on there right now a self-love quiz that people can go on, because so many of us think that we love ourselves. We think that we're in our power, but we're actually living under the cultural conditioning of what we think is what makes us worthy. And this quiz really helps you gain awareness of where maybe you aren't quite fully embracing who you are, who you came here to be. I think it's a powerful tool to help people really gain awareness of where they stand with themselves.
Thank you so much, Nichole. I hope you come back and share more of your insights with them at another date, because I've really enjoyed having you, and I'm sure all the listeners you've given them a lot to think about. So thank you, and thank you, beautiful little Emberly.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure talking. Anytime I get to talk about her and the special gifts that she has given, not just to me, but to so many others, it's a blessing. And the fact that her birthday was yesterday just makes this even more special.
How old would she have been on Earth?
5.
5.
Which is crazy.
So it's only been 3 years since she passed. She passed at 2, correct?
Almost 2, yep.
Yeah. Thank you for the strength of your spirit and your willingness to share.
Absolutely.
It means a lot. It means a lot. Thank you so much, Nichole.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course.